Hey retro gamers, today on Smashing Bricks we sail the Great Sea and pay exactly 3,184 rupees in 2002 money to pay some weirdo to decipher maps in The Legend of Zelda, The Wind Waker, for the Nintendo GameCube. I wonder how much that is adjusted for Hyrulean inflation. Hey, welcome back to Smashing Bricks, a retro gaming podcast. This is episode 41. My name is Eddie Inzauto, and today I'm joined by our old pal, the hero of Hyrule, Anthony LaBella. Hey, man.
Hello, that's me. I have my green tunic on. I'm ready to talk Zelda.
Nice. Okay, we're going to move quickly here at the beginning, but I have one question. Well, a multiple-part question for you. Are you a Zelda fan? What was your first Zelda? When did you play it? And how many/which Zelda games have you played?
That is a good question. I feel like I represent the alternate perspective when it comes to Zelda, because whoever's listening is probably imagining, oh, he got like a really big Zelda fan for Wind Waker. And that is not me. I don't dislike Zelda, but I wouldn't consider myself a big fan. There are some I really like a lot, and some I've dabbled in, but they didn't grab me.
Mm-hmm.
Though I feel like part of me maybe needs to reevaluate the series a bit, but I am a huge fan of the newer games, the Switch games, Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild, but I know they're very different from the older ones.
Mm-hmm.
First one I ever played was A Link to the Past, which is still one of my favorites.
When did you play that?
That would have been... I think the first time I played it was the GBA version, which would have been early 2000s.
Okay, early 2000s.
Because they re-released it. Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
And I like it a lot. I really do like most of the 2D Zeldas quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
I love A Link Between Worlds.
Mm-hmm.
I played Minish Cap for the first time recently and enjoyed that a lot. The
Okay.
3D ones are a little more spotty for me. I've played Ocarina but not beaten it. I've played Majora's Mask but not beaten it. We'll talk about my experience with Wind Waker. I played a little bit of Twilight Princess even recently.
Oh.
And I played a little bit of Skyward Sword. And none of those previously had really grabbed my attention other than Majora's Mask.
Okay.
Because it's so weird and so different.
Very interesting. Because I'm going to spoil a future episode when I'm able to do a bonus round of my favorite Zeldas and say that
there we go.
2 that you named that you like are my top 2.
Ooh, okay.
But we'll get to that on another episode in another timeline. Speaking of the Legend of Zelda timelines. Okay, this game, it came out in 2002 in Japan, December 13th, and then in North America, March 24th, 2003, the EU and Australia in May. It was developed and published by Nintendo. It's an action-adventure game. It's a Zelda game. Most people know what a Zelda game is. It takes place unusually on a 7x7 overworld grid map of an ocean with one island or archipelago in each grid space, and random things to do on each, whether it's exploring or getting to a fairy fountain or having a dungeon or a village or a town, a variety of things, combat arenas, whatever. You sail from place to place by changing the direction of the wind to power your sailboat. You have a similar structure to most classic Zelda games with a few dungeons and then kind of a midpoint, and then some more dungeons, and then kind of an end point. This one really reduced a lot of that in a way, and we'll talk about why. On land, you're walking around. It's a 3D environment. You control the camera. It follows Link in third person. You have semi-automatic traversal, like jumping. He jumps automatically. You can move things around by holding a button. You can shuffle along a small ledge by pushing a button. You can hang off a ledge and shimmy whatever. And you have Z-targeting combat popularized by the games that came before it and continued for a while in the series. It's basically an enhanced Z-targeting from Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. As in all Zelda games, you have some secondary items that you pick up along the way. You put on other buttons on your controller. This one has a musical mechanic in the Wind Waker, just like the Ocarina. And you do a lot of sailing. And it uses a never-before-seen, bright, cel-shaded, cartoony graphical style for the Zelda franchise, which was controversial at the time. And just like most Zelda games, it's about a hero's journey. In this case, some nobody becoming a hero and saving the world. So that is The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker. You already said that you hadn't played this one. This is your first time playing it. Is that right, Anthony?
So I owned it, but I don't recall ever playing it. So I have an original GameCube copy, and when my brother and I were younger, we had a habit of just buying many games and maybe not getting to them every now and again. So I don't think I ever played it, even though I did own it.
You, sir, are a jerk.
Because at that point, I would have played Ocarina already, because I played it on an N64, like, years after the fact. And I don't remember Ocarina grabbing me. I had played Link to the Past by then, right? I remember liking that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think I probably my brother played some of it, but I don't recall playing it.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm actually holding my Nintendo GameCube instruction booklet for Zelda: The Wind Waker in my hand right now. Along with this little insert, team up with Tingle, you can connect your Game Boy Advance and get some clues. But my experience was a day one pre-order. Okay. Mofo. Pre-ordered.
Pre-order. We're out here pre-ordered.
Yeah, I got the Legend of Zelda Collector's Edition disc for pre-ordering, I think. Oh no, that's not right. I got the Ocarina of Time Master Quest disc for pre-ordering.
Oh, right. I forgot that came with it.
Yeah, I remember. So I was a huge Ocarina of Time fan. I was a big Link to the Past fan from the original time when that came out.
Yeah.
Got Ocarina of Time pretty much early on in the Nintendo 64 era. Loved that. It was transformative. Majora's Mask bounced off completely, like played it just a little bit and then bounced off it because it was like a little weird and I was still, I don't know. It was just something about it didn't click for me at the time. Meanwhile, it became one of my favorites later on. And then by the time this came out, I was super hyped. Even through all the pre-release hype and changes and complaints and all that, which we'll talk about in a second. So got it day one, played the heck out of it, loved it. Loved this game when it came out. We'll see how it held up, in my opinion. But yeah, I was a fan, even though it was a baby game, according to everyone, with the graphics. So yeah, that's where I was. Okay, so we'll do a little bit of history about the game. At the time, the GameCube was not doing amazingly well. This was a time when it was like popular opinion that Nintendo was too kiddie. Like, even the GameCube itself, people complained about, what, you made a purple lunchbox? This is so lame. What, you're not using full-size DVDs? It's going to be so underpowered. You're not going to be able to hold as much data on your discs. I mean, which is true. But they went to discs for the first time. But Nintendo was really kind of starting to carve out their own direction at this point, even though the GameCube was still had a lot of the same games that were on PlayStation 2 and the original Xbox, they were going like a little bit more kid friendly, which they always were. It's just the fans of Nintendo were getting older. So something about the GameCube, it didn't have a great launch lineup. It didn't have a lot of third-party support early on, which is like plagued Nintendo forever. Probably just spilling over from their reliance on the cartridge format in the previous generation, where they lost a lot of that third-party support. So they got a little bit back here, but not a ton. So I say all that because there's a reason. But anyway, the development for this game began in 2000, shortly after Majora's Mask was released, and it was conceived prior to that game being finished. These two dark and serious Zelda games were released back to back, and this one was supposed to be like that too at first. It was just going to be an enhanced version of that same dark 3D polygonal style. They even had that famous Space World demo of Link and Ganondorf having a sword duel in the year 2000. Do you remember that?
I don't recall that, no.
Oh man, that was a big thing. That it was like there was this demo of these two characters fighting in a 3D style that really resembles Twilight Princess.
I was going to say, was that their first attempt at a Twilight Princess-esque
Yeah,
thing,
it kind of
right?
looked like that. But and people were so hyped for that.
Right.
Like insane. It really set expectations for a lot of people who were then hugely disappointed a year later. And this is why.
Big difference.
Because Eiji Aonuma, I hope I pronounced his name correctly, hated it. He hated that demo. He thought it was derivative. He thought it was just like the same as the previous games. So they started exploring different options until one of the artists, graphic designers, Yoshiki Haruhana, drew Toon Link. He just drew Toon Link, and that was something that caught Aonuma's eye, and the rest of the team kind of liked it, and they worked on that. And then Satoru Takizawa did a cel-shaded Moblin, and at this point they were like, okay, this is what we're doing. They were just off to the races here. And they hid the new style from Shigeru Miyamoto, who was acting at this time as a producer along with Takashi Tezuka. So this was Aonuma's second sole directorship of a Zelda game, because he also directed Majora's Mask. So I see what he's saying, like, oh, it wasn't creative enough. You know, he just made the previous game that was wildly different in terms of mechanisms. You know, even though it had the same graphical assets as Ocarina of Time, he took that and made it something weird and wonderful and different. And now this 3 in a row would have been too much for him. So they went with different graphics. They hid it from Shigeru Miyamoto. He was afraid that he wasn't going to like it. And the graphic style inspired them to set the game on the ocean. Setting it on the ocean or around the ocean led to the idea of having islands as locations and sailing between them. And that's where we got the concept from. But when Miyamoto and Tezuka found out about this, they didn't love it. Miyamoto even told Aonuma that it's not too late to change this. We can go back.
Jeez.
So at 2001 Space World, they revealed the cel-shaded style, and that's when Zelda, Celda, became a big derisive nickname for this. You know, people were very upset about this baby game after what they saw in that really dark and gritty and like quote unquote adult demo. So that wasn't great. Miyamoto decided to not reveal anything else until they had a gameplay demo, because they wanted the gameplay to speak for the game as opposed to just the visuals. And that happened in 2002 at E3, where they got a better reception, especially from the press who got their hands on it, even though players who hadn't were still thinking, ugh, baby game. All right, so that was how that came to be. And as they approached the release that they wanted to hit, they were behind, and they really wanted to get this game out. And this comes back to when I was saying the GameCube wasn't doing amazingly well. So they figured, well, Zelda will help, because Zelda is our bread and butter. Everyone wants Zelda. This will help the GameCube. Let's rush it out and cut 2 dungeons. So they cut a couple dungeons and they added the infamous Triforce quest, which you didn't get to.
I didn't experience, but I know of it.
Yeah.
It's quite infamous.
So the infamous Triforce quest, we'll talk about it a little later. That was even shortened from the Japanese version to the Western versions, or the non-Japanese versions, which is funny. As I said, it shipped with a Master Quest disc for pre-orders, and it also had a demo on the Zelda Collector's Edition disc, which was for certain, if you bought certain games, if you were a member of Nintendo Power, whatever it was, that was something else that it was demoed on. This was composed by a team. It was not Koji Kondo by himself. He was part of the team, but he wasn't even the sound director. It was, I think the lead was Kenta Nagata, but there were 2 other people, Hajime Wakai, Toru Minagishi, and Koji Kondo. So they made this larger because, probably because they had a disc for the first time, so they could actually put some freaking good audio in their games. So they wanted a higher quality of music, and also they were rushing the development, so they need to expand the music team. And that worked out, in my opinion. We'll talk about that too.
Yeah.
Apparently, Shigeru Miyamoto played the mandolin in the title theme.
Oh.
I think that is super
That's cool.
That's fun to know.
Yeah, that's a fun fact.
I knew he played the banjo.
Yeah, I've heard of that. But yeah, mandolin too. That's neat.
As for sales, it was the most successful pre-order campaign in Nintendo history at the time. However, sales did not live up to expectations in either Japan or North America. Wind Waker sold about 4.6 million copies. Ocarina had sold 7.6 million copies. So, big drop-off.
Yeah.
Likely because of the poor reception to the art style, I would think. There was a Wii U version, which eventually sold 2.37 million, and that was released in 2013 for the Wii U. And this one was funny too. It was developed when the staff were trying out different Zelda elements as they prepared to make Breath of the Wild, which I always forget is also available on Wii U. That's insane to me. And the port and an enhanced remake only took about 6 months, and it fixed a ton of stuff in the game, which I think I'll talk about now, just before we get into our playthrough. Actually, which version did you play, Anthony?
I played the GameCube version on my Steam Deck, but I know the Wii U version's very highly regarded. I feel like the big one is the Triforce quest at the end, right?
Yeah. After reading the changes for the HD Wind Waker HD, I wish I had a Wii U, and I wish I played it there, because a lot of stuff that I don't love about Wind Waker are completely fixed.
Yeah.
So one thing it does is on the Wii U you have the big gamepad with the screen, so you now have a touchscreen map that's always on, which is
that's nice for the
in
sailing.
this game.
Yeah.
In this game, kind of more than any other Zelda game, because you're navigating the sea is important.
Right.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's huge.
And you can also drag items from your inventory to just place them onto your face buttons on the controller, just by dragging on the gamepad, and that removes going into an inventory screen throughout the whole game.
Right.
That's pretty cool. I mean, that's not like a problem that I was looking to solve, but since they already had that piece of hardware, they made use of it pretty well. Also, as far as the design of the game itself, they shortened the Triforce quest, which you previously had to get 8 charts, have them translated 8 times by paying 398 rupees 8 times to Tingle in his one place on the map,
Jesus.
8 times, then go out to where those maps told you to go and dip your grappling hook into the sea to pull up the Triforce shards. Well, instead of 8, it's 3 in the HD. And the other 5, you find them where the charts were in the original. So you don't have to deal with Tingle more than 3 little times, which is big improvement. I would get rid of Tingle entirely. We'll talk about it. The smallest wallet was bumped up from, I think, 99 rupees to 500. So that's great because you're spending money. They included something called the Swift Sale that you could get not at the very beginning, but after a little while at the auction on Windfall Island. Mm-hmm. And that makes you sail faster, and the wind always changes direction to be at your back.
Oh,
you don't have to do the wind.
Are you serious?
Thing.
I'm insane.
Pretty sure. So you're just whichever direction you want to go, you go at full speed and then some because it's already faster.
Oh, that's so good. Oh, I wish.
Right? Yeah. Okay. Also, the Wind Waker. The item, the baton, the Wind Waker is a baton, the conductor's baton. It's like the ocarina, anyone who doesn't know. It is permanently mapped to a D-pad button.
Oh, I had heard
all your other items are on the changeable face buttons on the right side of the controller. Mm-hmm. And when you play songs with it, it doesn't trigger another cinematic playthrough of the song. It just immediately does the action.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. Also, the crane and the cannon, which are items derived from the what's it called? The grappling hook and the bombs, those are permanently mapped to the D-pad when you're on the boat. So you don't have to map them when you're on the boat.
Right.
It also seems like, I'm not sure of this, but just looking at pictures, it seems like there's an extra sub-item button, just because there are more buttons available or something. And when you're using the grappling hook, you can change directions while you're swinging back and forth.
Oh, that's nice. You don't have to stop and turn.
Yeah, in the GameCube version, you have to stop completely, turn, and then restart swinging. Mm-hmm. Also, the cutscene for the grappling hook grabbing on to whatever you're throwing it at is greatly reduced in time, as well as when you're fishing something up from the seabed. There are also gyroscopic controls for aiming if you're into that sort of thing. And the pictograph box holds more pictures and tells you when you get a good shot for when you do the side little quest of making statues.
Yeah.
And finally, they improved the challenge of the game by adding what's called hero mode. You take double damage and no hearts drop anywhere in the game. You have to heal yourself either with potions, fairies, or heart pieces.
Huh.
So it's like a pro mode. So it's hero mode. So there you go.
Those
are the differences for the HD, and it sounds incredible.
Stuff. Yeah,
right?
I would love to have played that version.
Yeah.
Wow.
So the GameCube version is coming to Switch Online in about 3 weeks when Switch 2 releases on June 5th. But it's the GameCube version.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I think everyone was hoping they would do the Twilight Princess and Wind Waker, but they're still stuck on Wii U, the HD versions.
Yeah. Oh, well. Even though it was a divisive game among fans, this was critically lauded. Metacritic of 96 out of 100.
Yeah, so some of the posted scores we have: All Game gave it 4.5 out of 5. Computer and Video Games a 10 out of 10. Edge Magazine 9 out of 10. Electronic Gaming Monthly a 29.5 out of 30. What a specific score.
Yeah, you couldn't bump it up the last
right?
half.
You couldn't just round up.
Yeah.
Eurogamer a 9 out of 10. Famitsu gave it a 40 out of 40, which I believe was
what? Whoa!
Only the fourth game to ever receive a perfect score from
That's a
Japanese
big
magazine
deal.
Famitsu. Huge.
Yeah.
Huge deal. Game Informer, 10 out of 10. Game Pro, 5 out of 5. Game Revolution, A-. GameSpot, 9.3 out of 10. GameSpy, 97 out of 100. IGN, 9.6 out of 10. NGC Magazine, 96%. Nintendo Power, 5 stars. And Nintendo World Report, 10 out of 10. And also some Game of the Year awards on top of all that. So, yeah, we had GameSpot, GameFAQs, Games.com, Nintendo Power, and Planet GameCube all give it Game of the Year as well.
Yeah, and I feel like it got some other stuff as far as awards
sure.
go too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, critically acclaimed
really
for
well
sure.
received. Reviewers loved the art, the animations, the controls, the story, the soundtrack. Criticized the sailing and the Triforce quest, and that it was too easy for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
People in Japan, players, were a little bit more receptive of this game.
Yeah.
I guess generally receptive of anime, right?
Right.
But players in the West still remain divided, and did for a long time. And I feel like over time, the feelings about this game have changed for the better.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's what everybody thought about it then. But we played it. So here's what we thought about it. Anthony.
Yeah.
We played The Legend of Zelda, The Wind Waker.
We did.
What were your first impressions after getting into this game and getting past like the first little tutorial bits, which were not terribly long in my opinion?
No, I feel like I had heard the opening stealth stuff was really bad, but it's not super long. So, but beyond that, just in general, I feel like the visuals are the big thing everyone talks about with this game, or at least the reception back then. So just to kind of front load that, I love how this game looks. Absolutely love. And it blows my mind this came out 3 years after Majora's Mask. It's so, oh my god, it's like night and day when you think about the N64 games. The cell shading, like at this point in video games, wasn't overdone. So even at the time, I felt like it was quite distinct, and it helps it like stand the test of time in a way that a lot of 3D games don't. Like even in 2025, it looks incredible. And again, I didn't play the HD version. I'm just playing the GameCube version. It looks so fantastic because of that art style, and also everything is so expressive. Like it's very charming in its expressiveness. All of Link's animations with his face. Even at the beginning when he's getting loaded in the cannon, you see him kind of grit his teeth. And it's just so charming and so funny. And you get so much more personality out of the game because of the art style. So it's not just that it looks good. It enhances kind of the tone and atmosphere of the whole thing. So I was just kind of blown away by how good it looks even today in 2025. Honestly, that's probably my favorite thing about Wind Waker is the art style, even though it was so controversial.
Yeah, it does not age much at all. Like I'm playing on original hardware for this one, and it looks good. It gives you the one option, like, do you want progressive scan mode? I say yeah, and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And as you said, the animations, the game is just so full of life because of the graphics, that the visual style was, may not have been the right decision for the audience at the time, but for the integrity of the artwork that they were creating, yes.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, considering the story and the, you're just a boy on an island and the sailing, like all of it cohesively goes together when you have that art style. And also, trying to think at the time period, 02, 03, I think of a movie like Spirited Away, the Studio Ghibli movie, which was incredibly popular in 2001, even in America. So just always seems silly to me that there was such this backlash, I guess because of the history of Zelda before that, but there were people getting into that kind of art style and Studio Ghibli movies back then. It just feels very unfair that it received such harsh criticism when everyone who'd
Yeah.
said that was absolutely wrong. It looks so good.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like if they had never shown the original 2000 Space World demo,
Sure. Mm-hmm.
they wouldn't have had this problem.
Right, it's more
like,
of an expectation.
This is what you're getting. Oh, I lied. Just kidding.
Right, just kidding.
Not.
Yeah.
Instead of, this is what you're getting, and it's Toon Link. People are like, oh, okay, well, that's different. Not
right.
like, I was so ready for what you showed me. Why would you change it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah.
So we might as well jump over to sound,
Mm-hmm.
because that's part of this presentation. And
Yeah.
did you feel it also fit the theme? Did it enhance the mood of the game?
Oh, absolutely. The soundtrack is fantastic in Wind Waker as well. Like, on a presentation level, this game excels so much. It's very... I was trying to think of a word to use. Maybe whimsical in its music a lot of the time. Which, again, when you consider how it looks, that is the absolute right choice in how to present the music. So very whimsical, very jaunty at times. I see you put kind of an Irish influence. That's interesting. But yeah, absolutely, with some of the instrumentation. And I just love how, again, it feeds into that visual style. It all feels very purposeful and cohesive rather than just, oh, it looks good and it sounds good. They go together as well, which is awesome.
Definitely bright and cartoony, and it has the sound of seafaring.
Yeah.
Intrinsically in that music. The intro music is among my favorite Zelda tracks.
Yeah, can't argue with that.
The overworld theme while you're sailing is my favorite overworld theme of all Zelda, as far as I can think of right now. It's the game I just played, but when I think, oh, what's the best Zelda overworld, I immediately think the Great Sea.
Nice, yeah.
Even though, like, I love a lot of the music in Zelda, but this is the one that comes to mind because when it plays, I feel like I'm on an adventure more than any other Zelda game.
Right. Emotionally, it feels more attached. I agree. Like, just kind of, it swells in you that you're on this grand adventure in a way that the other games do to a degree, but I feel it more in Wind Waker. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it has that, like, just the specific instrumentation, the crescendo in that track. Da-da-da-da. Like, the just the vibes are immaculate.
Yeah.
Immaculate vibes. Okay, so it looks great. How does it feel? What about controls? How'd you feel about getting into combat and using items and stuff in this one?
Yeah. So yeah, presentation wise, top notch. When we get more into the mechanics, kind of that nitty gritty of how it plays, it felt good to play. I feel like it's very responsive. I think when I start analyzing how it plays, it gets into some of the criticism that people had about it being too easy. So it feels good to play, but it
felt
also
so
feels
good that it made it too easy.
Honestly, yeah, there's not enough friction there. Like, even though it, literally feels good and responsive, there's not enough friction there. So then it feels like I'm playing a game almost on autopilot. And as a result, I feel less engaged in the moment-to-moment mechanics, whether that's combat or puzzle solving or, it's just, I don't feel like I'm in danger of anything wrong happening. So
yeah, nothing is stopping you from doing what you want.
Exactly. So it's a little too relaxed of an atmosphere, which, again, if you start thinking about how everything ties together, we have the cel-shaded visuals, the whimsical soundtrack, but I think it still needs to, even a grand adventure, right? Even like a kid's novel about a grand adventure, there's always some kind of friction or conflict there. And I just didn't feel it mechanically. It felt too easy, and that ends up being one of my bigger complaints about the game.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I enjoyed the swordplay a lot because of the smoothness of movement. You can do those side jumps and the backflips and everything that was in the prior Nintendo 64 titles was here. and much more smooth and beautiful and easy to perform, and it all just kind of linked together. And then some, like then you had the counterattacks, which I loved, but also made the game maybe too easy.
Yeah,
right?
the animation looks really good, but yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
oh, let me just hit A, it's right there.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I was a fan of QTEs. I'm the only one. Because
Oh,
I like
we
the
found him,
idea.
everyone. Eddie's here. He's the one.
Hear me, the guy who loves Dark Souls games and
Right.
the punishing combat of that. No, I love QTEs also because I
Sure.
think it's fun. You know, you can't make that special thing that a QTE does or that these counterattacks do. You can't make that happen with the regular controls of a game. So the idea of that is cool to me because you get to watch it and it feels like, oh, I'm so badass.
Right, the visual feedback, yeah.
I do agree that it was incredibly easy. I don't think I ever died. But overall, I think it's very, as you said, easy, smooth, and that's a good thing and a bad thing for me. But I guess a bad thing for a lot of people, and as you said, a bad thing for you, ultimately making it too easy and not giving you any fear. But what did work? How about the traversal as far as like jumping around? Did you feel like that was much improved from the N64 games?
Oh yeah, absolutely. In terms of movement and like that kind of responsiveness or just navigating the dungeons, navigating the world, it feels great. I really like. I'm just trying to think of like swinging on a rope in this game to me looks and feels good. Like I'm just jumping and swinging across. Like I think of, is it called the claw?
The grappling hook.
Grappling hook. Yeah, why I couldn't think of the name grappling hook. But even just like using the grappling hook to swing around, that kind of thing. It much like the visuals being kind of mind blowing, thinking of Majora's Mask to this, I feel like the feel of that is kind of mind blowing when you consider the N64 games to this one.
When I first got the grappling hook in 2003, that was a pivotal moment. And so too was using that grappling hook on, I guess it's the first boss, really?
Yeah, with
you fight Goma in Dragon Roost Cavern.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to swing off of Valu, the dragon's tail, a bunch of times, and that pulls him down. He crashes on top of Goma, and then you can go hit Goma.
Yeah.
But just that whole battle was a big deal to me because of the cinematics of it. Like if you think back to like what was happening in your boss fights and stuff in other games, this was like a big step up.
Yeah.
The presentation of it, the way the camera followed you, the layers of the animation of the environment as well as the animation of the characters together, and it all came together with the mechanisms of the sub items. And the sub items in this game were really good. In a lot of Zelda games, or in a handful of Zelda games, I feel like you get these items that you use in a dungeon and then don't use it much anymore, or like use it a few times, use it for specific things. I felt like this game had a lot of uses for your items, you know? Like you could use that grappling hook to swing. You could use it. You could then like swing across a gap. You could climb up and stand on the thing above where you grappled. You can then use it on the ship, the boat, and pick things up. Your bombs were both bombs and cannon. The leaf you could blow wind with, or you
like
could
a
sail with
kinda.
it. Yeah. So there are a lot of multiple uses, and they kept using the early items throughout the game.
Yeah.
Deep into the game, which is cool.
Yeah. I like how you bring that up, how they feel useful beyond the dungeon in which you find them in a way that maybe not all Zeldas do, because that's definitely a complaint I've had at times with different Zelda games is I have this cool item, but you don't really want me to use it beyond this specific area or this specific use case. And I feel like Wind Waker does a pretty good job of having it be a tool that's going to last you through the game once you get it. It's like a, consider it a tool in your tool belt, right? It's not this is the dungeon item. This is an item you found that will serve you throughout the game. And I did like that from what I played.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And that, like, these first three things we just talked about kind of combine to give me the sense that this might be the best starting point for someone to play Zelda games.
Interesting.
In a way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's the first one with solid controls. You can control the camera for the first time with the C stick.
Oh, that's
Before
true,
that, you couldn't.
Yeah.
You know, with Majora's Mask and Ocarina, you had to hold Z and it would just center the camera behind you. This one, you get to move it around, and that's a big deal. It makes just walking easier. Like, you think about Ocarina of Time, you're trying to walk across a narrow platform that changes direction. You have to walk to a vertex, turn slowly, press Z to see that you're looking the right way, then press forward. In this one, you just go, and as you're moving forward, you just pull the camera out to the side, and you just keep moving forward on a nice, smooth curve. Totally different experience.
Yeah.
So it's a really huge upgrade, I think, even though it's largely the same.
It's easy to take that for granted, but you're absolutely right. Like, we weren't even mentioning that with the game feel, but yeah, the fact that you can literally move the camera is such a huge improvement in what we consider, right, with modern games nowadays that, those older ones just didn't have, so, yeah.
Yeah. All right, so where do we want to go from here? There's a lot about this game. I mean, sailing?
Let's talk about the sailing. So I feel like the complaint ends up being how much you have to change the wind direction with the baton. Which it sounds like if you get that sail in the Wii U version, you don't have to worry about that, which would be nice.
Right.
I still, there are times where I'm thinking, oh, okay, I have to change the wind again. But I kind of liked the fact that you had to engage in that. It made me feel more like a seafarer, more like a cartographer. I feel like mechanically maybe a bit obtuse or could be frustrating for some folks, but I feel like it adds again to that seafaring adventure where, okay, I'm having to control the wind so that I can be a real sailor and get to this island or go to this next quest. So even though it would feel tedious at times, I think it actually serves the almost open world layout of the sailing, and I think it kind of enhances that. So I enjoyed the sailing. I enjoyed taking out the Wind Waker to change the wind direction and kind of just discover things along the way. I think the problem I ended up having was that I wish the sea was a bit more dense in its content. I think you can go quite a bit without seeing anything, or maybe just a small island that has one small thing. I would have loved to see more islands along the way, maybe some more items to pick up on different spots. There's a decent amount, but I think there could have been a lot more, and then you end up with a lot of moments where you're just kind of sailing without seeing a whole lot.
Yeah. I think if I had to wager, I didn't find evidence of this. I didn't really look that hard. But there are these reefs. They're called like the one-eye reef, the two-eye reef. They look like dice faces, and so there's 6 of them. And they're all just literally the same thing. You go in, you shoot cannon bombs at some turrets and some ships, and when you kill everything around the reef, a treasure chest appears on top of one of these parts of it. Then you have to walk up and around until you find a high point and then glide over to it and get whatever it is. It might be a heart piece, but it might be 20 rupees.
Yeah.
So I feel like those were spots on the map that they hadn't come up with something interesting for. When they were rushing development, they said, here's an idea. I said, okay,
let's throw this in there again. Yeah. I could see that.
And that's similar to a lot of other like copy pasted stuff in this game. You have the reefs, you have the submarines are all over the place.
Right.
Basically, you see a guy looking with a telescope and he says, "Oh, there's something out there." And you go and it's a submarine. You go in, it has just the same layout as the pirate ship, essentially. The same layout as the ghost ship that you have to get on later. Just like one room, you go down into a lower portion of the room. you kill a few moblins or like whatever basic enemies, you get a treasure chest and you leave. And it's maybe 20 rupees. It's maybe a heart piece. Who knows?
Right.
And then you have the sea platforms. And there's even a chart for the sea platforms that you get, and it shows where they all are. And maybe you want to go explore them because maybe you'll find a heart piece. But maybe you'll find 20 rupees.
Right. Oh, yeah, the devastation.
So,
it's such a...
So there's a lot
good
of
or
that.
really bad.
Yeah. Same thing with, as you're sailing, sometimes you see glowing circles on the sea.
Right.
And you can go and you can drop your grappling hook in to try to lift up whatever that treasure is. Maybe it's 20 rupees. Maybe it's 200. I don't know if a random one can have a heart piece, but I know that there are also treasure charts that you find throughout the game, and they're presented as if they're like supposed to be a great thing. You know, they're like an upper tier
it's
treasure
momentous
chest
thing, yeah.
like a mid-tier treasure chest anyway. You know, they're not like a big key or a new item, but you get the animation that something special's in there. You get a treasure
when you open
chart.
the chest, yeah.
But then maybe that treasure chart leads to a heart piece. Or maybe it leads to 20 rupees. So, like, okay. You know, there's a lot of stuff that's just, it's almost like they randomized the same copy-pasted thing, you know, as far as the reward you get.
Right.
So I didn't love that about it. I mean, earlier you said, when you first told me before we started recording how far you got, you said you got to the Tower of the Gods.
Yeah.
And in my head, I saved it to not say to you, but I kind of forgot to say it a little bit earlier. I said, oh, well, you played the good half.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
So early in the game, I felt the same way about the exploration.
Yeah.
You feel like there's this great sea out there. That's why it's named the Great Sea. The Great Sea out there that you have to explore, and it's exciting. You don't know what's out there. You go into the next part of the grid. You talk to the little fish. You feed him some food. He paints it on your map. He tells you a little secret, either about that island or about something a few squares away, or on Windfall Island or at whatever. He gives you some information about the world. You're learning. It's awesome. You're filling out the map, and you're discovering what is on each island. And it's also kind of opening up as you go. It's kind of Metroid style. You know, first you get the grappling hook. That opens up the opportunity to do some things. Then you get the Wind's Requiem, which lets you change the direction of the wind so you can actually go where you want. And you get the bombs. Now you can blow up rocks and walls and stuff. Then you get, what else do you get? You get the Deku Leaf, so now you can kind of make it over certain gaps, you know, by gliding or whatever.
Yeah.
Then you get the bow and arrow at the Tower of the Gods, and that's great because it lets you shoot the wind god guy, who then gives you the Ballad of Gales, so now you can warp around. And that lets you drop in on a specific place. Now you can get, I don't know, you see a new fairy, I think is part of it. You also get the ice and the fire arrows. Now you can melt stuff or freeze stuff. Later on, you get the hook shot. Now you can, you know, grab onto something on a ledge above you and get up there. So it does have this Metroidvania-ness to it, where you're opening up new parts of the map, even though they're not cut off physically by like the design. Like in Zelda 1 or Link to the Past, you have the same idea. You have like a grid map, right? But you can only go in a certain way because it's made like a little bit of a maze, and it has different parts gated off. And as I was playing the early half of the game, I thought to myself, I was like, wait, this reminds me a lot of Link to the Past or even Zelda 1.
Sure.
You know, it's just on a different geographic feature. And even though you're going to islands, they're just like points of interest that would have been somewhere in Link to the Past. Like, for example, Kakariko Village would have been an island, and it is. It's Windfall.
Yeah.
Things like that. So it had that same vibe of exploration, but instead of doing what I was thinking, like busy work in between those areas where you're going from screen to screen and you have to fight the same Hyrulean guards over and over again every time you walk back and forth, now you're sailing, and it fills that gap with the emotion of the Great Sea Overworld soundtrack, and you feel like you're on an adventure.
Yeah.
But when you get past that half point, that midway point of the game, it starts to just become tedious in a way. Like you're going back and forth to places you've already been. You're not discovering anything. The pace of the game and the pace of your discovery, it slows more to a crawl.
Okay. More backtracking, you'd say, at that point?
Yeah, you're backtracking. And that makes me think of these two islands in the second half of the game, each of which precedes one of the dungeons. So there's only 2 dungeons in the second half of the game, and there were supposed to be 4. And I think the Fire Ring Isle and the Ice Ring Isle were supposed to be full dungeons, but they became just something you had to go to, kind of do like a little task to get in and open a treasure chest, get a new item that was supposed to be the item that you get in a dungeon, and then use that to access the entrance of the respective temple. Yeah. So you have to get the iron boots, for example, from one of the islands, I think the ice one, to go to, I think it's called Gale Isle or something. It's the one that houses the wind temple, because it's blowing wind at you from the island, so you can't go up to the entrance without these iron boots. But you have to go to this other place to get those iron boots, but in that other place where you get them, you're not doing anything special. You're just doing like a little task, and it could have been a dungeon, and it would have been a dungeon.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of slowdown in the
So more of a checklist. Sounds like more of a checklist of exploration things to do rather than feeling like exploration itself in the second half.
Yeah, and then you have the Triforce quest.
Well,
too,
yeah, and then literally, yeah.
You know. Huh. So it was a roller coaster of emotions as far as like, do I like the sailing or do I not? Sure. And I felt the same way originally. I remember I have a vivid memory of being a Wind Waker defender.
Yeah.
Because people would complain about the sailing. And I'm like, are you kidding me? The sailing's amazing. I love it. I love exploring. It's phenomenal. And I loved it so much at the time that I didn't even have much of a complaint about the Triforce quest or the second half of the game being slow. Then I played the game again in 2021, maybe, because I was doing all the Zeldas. That's what inspired this podcast, was revisiting all the Zelda games.
Yeah.
And at that point, I was kind of maybe in a rush or something, which is funny because when I played through, I had the urge to immediately start exploring, and I realized that, it's kind of guided on rails at first.
Yeah. Bit linear.
And then when I got to the second half, I was like, geez, this is tiresome. And it really reduced my opinion of the game, which previously was like near the top. So it came down. But now this time playing, I didn't even think to try to go off the beaten path in the first half of the game, because the pace was right. It was saying, go here, you have something to do. And I wanted to, because the game inspired me to. You know what I mean? Like, it didn't just say, go here, and I just did it because it said it. I did it because I felt compelled by what the game made me feel. And that was great. And I was really excited for the whole first half. And then as we got to the second half of the game, I started to be like, this is a little annoying. That's a little annoying. What's going on? I'm not so high on this anymore. You know?
Huh. That's interesting. Yeah.
I wrote down a tedious things list. I wrote, yes, sailing is tedious later on.
Right. So yeah,
and
kind of a tale of two halves. Right.
Yeah. The Song of Passing. When I didn't like sailing in the nighttime, having to change it to the daytime.
Yeah.
The Song of Command, which you got a taste of
I
in
did
the
in
Tower
the
of the
Tower of
Gods.
Gods,
You
yeah.
had to do that. I thought it was cool there. Like, it was introduced in that temple.
Yeah, it's a neat mechanic with the statues, yeah.
And you had the statues. But then, what did they do? Well, the Wind Temple, you get a companion. And you have to use the command melody
Of course you do.
constantly to control her. Cool, okay. Then what did they do in the Earth Temple? Reverse that. The first one was the Earth Temple. The second one's the Wind Temple. You get a different companion. Oh, and what do you have to do? Oh, you have to play the command melody all the time to control him.
Mm-hmm.
What? I just did 3 dungeons with the command melody being played over and over and over?
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, that's a bummer. Interesting.
So yeah, I definitely had a tale of two halves as far as let's call it tedium or pace breaking. The second half really fell off a little bit from the glory and excitement of sailing the great sea, like a first time explorer out on an adventure. Eventually it was just like, oh, I have to go up to the top left. Let me play the song. Now I have to change the wind.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, tale of two halves.
Yeah, pacing can be such a nebulous concept, but it's so important too. If something, if a game drags, especially, I'd say Wind Waker's probably 25 to 30 hours ish, somewhere around there by the end of it all. I would be my guess. Would you say that's right?
Yeah.
Like that's
30.
Okay, around 30.
Let's check how long to beat.
Yeah, what does it say?
25 and a half.
Okay.
Oh no, it says 25 and a half for HD, 29 for the original.
Oh, really?
So we have we have 3.5 hours.
We have quantified how much it's improved with HD. Jeez.
Yeah.
But yeah, like that's a pretty, lengthy game for this kind of thing. So when there are areas that drag completely, like that can be tough to deal with, right? Versus, I think of something like, I like the modern Zeldas that I've spent over 100 hours in. So I try to think of how you break all that up. Yeah, go ahead.
According to How Long to Beat, if you wanted to be a completionist and spend many hours in Wind Waker, you could spend 59.5 hours.
What? Seriously?
Or you could play the HD version and the completionist number is 42.5.
Wow.
So 17
hours.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Funny though that when you say that you're a big fan of the new ones, when I first played Breath of the Wild, I remember always thinking, "Oh man, this makes me think of Wind Waker."
Now I see it. Having played Wind Waker, you could see like the prototype of that style of game with the open sea.
Yeah,
it just doesn't give you enough freedom.
Enough stuff.
Yeah, and not enough stuff and not enough freedom. Like, I don't mind them guiding you a bit at the beginning, but like there's a part of me, right, which it's 2003, I understand why they wouldn't do this, but like really open it up to me completely. Like let me truly be a sailor and go wherever the heck I want. And like I guess A Link Between Worlds gets into this a little bit where you can kind of pick the order of the dungeons based on the items you rent. It's one of the only ones I
haven't played.
Yeah, oh, it's so good. And they do a thing where you can kind of chart your journey through some of the dungeons based on the items you rent. And I feel like it would have been cool to give some freedom with, like, maybe not for every dungeon, but with some of the dungeons. Like, you could go to the east and go to this one first, or you could sail west and go to this one first. I know that gets a little complicated with the items and the puzzles, but I would have liked a little more freedom with some of that, too. Because I think it does feel a little too hand-holdy at times.
That's literally exactly how I felt when I revisited it in 2021. But for whatever reason, it didn't strike me as that in 2003, and it didn't really strike me as that in the beginning of the playthrough here. But I 100% recognized that as a valid way to feel about this game because I felt it that one time. It's just funny. But okay, so what about other things that are traditionally Zelda? Yeah,
we gotta talk dungeons. What do you think?
Are always a big deal. It's interesting, actually. Like, I always think of Zelda games as two categories where there are like dungeon Zeldas and overworld Zeldas.
Sure.
Some of them are like good for the overworld, not
Mm-hmm.
so good for the dungeon. Some
Right.
really shine in the dungeon. They don't have a great overworld. Some have
Totally.
both. Some have, I mean, none of them have neither, I would say. Well, maybe, I don't know. This one, yeah. What do you think of the dungeons, Anthony?
I felt like I already got a sense based on that from you. This is an overworld Zelda, as you put it.
Yeah.
The dungeons are not great. from the ones I
Yeah.
played. I didn't beat the game, but I feel
Well,
like
here's the thing.
yeah.
The ones you played, they're simple, right? They're very like you can have one key at a time. You're not
Yes,
doing
literally,
a lot
yeah.
to.
You're just gonna have the one.
Yeah, you're not doing a lot to like figure out where you need to go, but they look nice and they work well and they get you
Thematically,
to where you're going. And I think they have cool and fun bosses, even if they're easy. But check this out. I think you played the better dungeons in this game.
Really? Oof.
Because those later, well, you know what? I like the Earth Temple, which was
Okay.
you get Medley, the Rito girl
Yeah.
from Dragon Roost. She comes along with you
Okay.
for the Earth Temple.
Mm-hmm.
This always confuses me. This is why I keep mixing these up or having to slow down when I say them, is because she's the bird,
Yeah.
and you go to the Earth Temple with her.
Oh.
The other one is the
it's
leaf
the wind
off
temple.
of a tree.
Yeah.
And you take him to the wind temple, and it just like always like
I
is
see. Yeah,
backwards
that
in my
does
brain.
feel opposite. That's funny.
But yeah, like that one I thought was pretty good, but I had to play the command melody about 787 times.
Yeah.
Which I didn't love at all. I wrote something down about something, and I think it was the wind temple. I wrote, I hate the wind temple, and I dislike the wind temple. Always have. Not necessarily because it happens to be the most complex in the game, because I am the odd lover of the Ocarina of Time water temple, for example.
Okay. Sure.
So don't come at me with saying, "Oh, you don't like a challenge." No, I love a puzzly challenge.
Yeah, a navigation challenge. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But just because it was a little too gimmicky, you know, like switching over, doing the command thing, going on and blah, blah, it just didn't, I don't know, it never really landed for me.
Yeah.
And there were like, you had to do these things like, oh, change the route that you're able to walk on by stomping on these switches that rotate a wall, so now you can go under it and he can walk over it. And I don't know, it just never came together. So I liked those first two because even though they were straightforward, they were like fun to play through, and
Sure.
you were getting you were like learning new ways to interact. Like in that first, what's it called? The not the first one, the second one, the Forest Haven. You go through a series of like opening the doors that have the vines on them, and then you have to
right,
throw
with the nuts and
the nuts.
Yeah.
Like there's the one part where you throw it into a hole. There's like fun stuff that you do, even though it's, you know, all but scripted, right? It's like the only thing you can do. You just have to recognize it.
Yeah, I guess I'd say that, the interaction of items is quite good in the first few dungeons. Like you said, like in that one, you're throwing the nuts and you're also, you know, using the boomerang that you get in the forest, the Forbidden Forest, Forbidden Woods. But so like, I think that's a strength, right, of those first few dungeons I played is kind of the item interaction. But I guess my thought, it makes me think of Metroid in a strange way, where when I'm going to a Metroid game, what I want out of a Metroid game is a game that challenges me to navigate, where there's a balance between getting lost and exploring and knowing where you need to go. So a game like Metroid Dread, which came out, 2-3 years ago, that people loved, I did not like so much as a Metroid fan because it was very guided. And I don't want a very guided experience from that kind of game. And I guess I think of a Zelda dungeon in a similar way, in that I want it to be a space I have to navigate with puzzles I have to find out how to solve, and how am I going to take this item and take it to previous rooms to find the new route, and there's not really any of that in at least the first few dungeons in Wind Waker. Once you get the item, you know where you need to go, or like you even hinted at a moment ago, you get a key, you know where that key's going. It's not that you have 3 silver keys and you need to figure out the doors. You have your 1 silver key, go to the door that was locked, or even there will be moments where you get an item and you might think to backtrack, but if you just keep going ahead, it's created a new route for you to get back to that room just without having to backtrack at all. So you don't even need to really be thinking about the space and how to navigate it, because the game's just saying, hey, here you go, right this way, please. And then you're back at the central room.
Essentially, you feel like you're just walking in a straight line, even if you're
right.
going,
even though the line looks nice, right? It's still that linear straight line. And I feel like these dungeons are the most linear of any Zelda game I've played, probably.
Pretty much.
And I don't like that.
Yeah. I feel like, honestly, the only one that isn't happens to be the one that I don't like, but it's not for that reason.
Right.
You might like that one for all I know.
Yeah, it sounds like that would be more up my alley.
I felt like it was tedious and haphazard in a way almost. But that might come down to the fact that you're not reminded that you need to use the command melody in that one.
Okay.
On your companion. And like every once in a while I would be like, damn, how do I get this guy up there? And then I think for a bit and I'm like, oh, just do the command melody. He can fly.
Yeah.
But the fact that I had to do that for the 3rd dungeon in a row was already tiresome.
Just the repetition of it all.
Yeah. But you know what? I like the bosses.
I like the bosses too. Yes, they're easy, but thematically, and again, it kind of ties in with kind of the tone of the game. Like I think of the Goma fight where I think the first time you pull the tail, that you get like a cutaway of the dragon going like, oh, what's going on down there? Like that kind of stuff. It feels very alive and unique in the way it's presented, even if mechanically it's quite easy. It's still, like you said, fun to do. Like the fights are fun and they look great, and just kind of the animation and spectacle of it all is really entertaining.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like the bosses are the best part of these dungeons, whereas in a lot of other Zelda games, the dungeons themselves are just as good as the bosses, if not better.
Usually better, yeah.
And I prefer, in gaming in general, my style is more like, give me a mental challenge and go easy on the dexterity challenge.
Sure.
Here, they've gone easy on both.
Right. Yeah. That's a good way to put it. I do want to shout out Tower of the Gods thematically, presentation wise. I think it's a great dungeon just in that sense. Like I love using the boat in the dungeon and kind of sailing with the water levels. And I think it's a cool use of the command melody when you first get it, using it on the statues. So like of all those dungeons I played of the 3, Tower of the Gods definitely stood out as my favorite of those 3.
Yeah, that makes sense. But I think that all of them, thematically and presentationally, just like the rest of the game, thematically and presentationally, is top notch.
Yeah, they're all good, to some degree, yeah.
It just has other things that detract.
Right.
Funny thing that I noticed when I was going through and trying to write out the notes.
Yeah.
I had to consult a walkthrough just to remember the game sequence.
Wow.
I was like, what did I even do in this game?
I know I sailed, but what else?
Yeah, I definitely sailed. I knew that.
I did a lot of that.
I definitely went fishing for Triforce pieces and was very excited when it happened.
Yeah.
But I couldn't remember a lot
Interesting.
of it.
So yeah, I think that speaks to, because you have to imagine, you think of a Zelda game like, oh, I remember this part of the dungeon and this part.
Yeah.
But it really is, like you said, one of the overworld Zeldas in that the sailing and kind of the general atmosphere is where it really shines.
Yeah. I guess the last thing that I would want to talk about is the story. You finished the Tower of the Gods? Like you beat the boss there, the face and hands.
Yeah, and then I went into the Hyrule area to get the Master Sword.
You did? Okay, so you went to Hyrule. With all the glass
windows, yeah, that was very cool.
So, spoiler alert, we already mentioned that we go to Hyrule and get the Master Sword, but what? We go underwater.
Yeah.
How did you feel about that? Did you know about that? Or was
I did not know about that. I think that's really cool. And then
was it big? A big deal?
I thought it didn't hit me, I'm sure, in the same way as like a big Zelda fan, but just I thought that was a neat thing that I didn't see coming. And then I love the look of is it like the sages, right, on the what do you call those type of windows?
Stained
glass windows. Thank you. Like I thought presentationally that was super cool. So that's like a real highlight moment in terms of the narrative, because beyond that, I guess I'll say I love the characterization for Zelda. I think it's a very unique twist on the character of Zelda, her being a pirate. So that's great. I think that moment's really cool. Beyond that, I don't know how much story I really got in the first half that I played.
Yeah. So I like the story in this game a lot. From the basic beginnings where you're this kid, celebrating the tale, even like from the opening screen, the game presents itself as a sequel to the Nintendo 64 games, much like you have Dark Souls 2 being a sequel to Dark Souls 1, far flung into the future where something has happened and the world has changed and you see the evidence of what has come before. But you're in this new world and you're doing this new thing. So in this game, you're just this boy. You're going out on this adventure. You're going out there because your sister was stolen, first of all. That's why you're on your adventure, because Ganondorf was looking for Zelda and trying to find girls with elf ears. So you get on this adventure and then it reveals, oh, it's Ganondorf. He's back. Then it reveals, oh, wow, Hyrule is under the sea and now I can travel down to it and grab the Master Sword. And that is a big, big deal if you're Eddie Inzauto in 2003.
If you're that
lover
Ocarina
of Time.
fan,
yeah, exactly. And it was like a gasp moment. Like, oh my God.
Right.
This is so cool. I'm 16, 17.
However many leagues.
Was I 18? I was 18 years old.
Oh, I thought you were going to say how far under the water you were.
Oh, yeah.
But that too.
Yeah. And then the story progresses in such a way that, like, so you get to the end of the game and Ganondorf has some actual characterization. He reveals that, like, he did this because his people were not doing well. They lived in the desert. They felt oppressed by their environment. Hyrule was prosperous, and I craved that for my people. So that was kind of interesting, at least,
Yeah, I like that.
So it was kind of cool.
Yeah, nice.
And I love the King of Red Lions, the boat that talks to you.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
It's revealed that he's the King of Hyrule.
Right. Yeah, so. that's a neat twist. I feel like the character work is really good, and again, I think it all ties together right with the presentation. It's kind of a lighthearted affair, but it works, and I think an underrated piece is that Zelda is great in this game. I love this Zelda.
That's true. Yeah, she's like her own person,
right?
Just
kind of
living
spunky,
her own life.
like doing her own thing. Yeah.
Yeah, because she's just another in the line,
right.
And they're so far in the future. They have no idea.
Right, so far removed.
Traditions. All they have is the story.
Right.
Like, they have the young boy wears this green thing on his birthday, and that's it. The next day, everything's back to normal. They don't even know from Ganondorf, evil, the god. Like, they're not into it. The fish calls the Triforce the Triumph Forks, for goodness sake. Like, that's how far removed they are.
Yeah.
That it's like, I don't really know what it's called, but this is what it sounds like after 100,
after all these years.
200, 300, 500,000 years, whatever it is.
Yeah, it's a fun conceit. Yeah.
So, final thoughts time. At the end of every episode, we decide whether these games we played were worth replaying in 2025 and beyond, and if we would recommend them. And if they are, then they're a smash. And if they're not, well, then they're a brick. So, Anthony, what do you say? Is Legend of Zelda The Wind Waker, is it a smash or a brick?
Yeah, so, I know there's flaws we talked about. Like, definitely one of the weaker Zeldas in terms of dungeons. Sounds like the second half gets a bit tedious with the sailing. But I think, if you consider this, like I said, an overworld Zelda versus a dungeon Zelda, I think it's a very good overworld Zelda. I think the sailing is quite unique for the series, and the presentation comes together in such a way that there's just this kind of joy you feel while playing it, and this sense of adventure you feel while playing it, that while it always doesn't hit, when it does, it feels very magical in a way that stands out for me from all the Zeldas I've played, especially as someone who's not the biggest 3D Zelda fan. I felt very charmed by this game in a way I wasn't quite expecting. I honestly thought, if I'm going to play a 3D Zelda, I'd probably like a Twilight Princess more, or maybe Majora's Mask because it's so strange. But I came away really smitten with Wind Waker, even though there are parts I don't like about it. So I think it's definitely a smash, and it holds up really, really well in 2025, I'd say.
Yeah, I feel like I agree with you. This was one of my most fondly remembered Zeldas up until like 2021.
Mm-hmm.
And at the point that we started playing for this podcast, it dropped. It's probably around like my 7th or 8th favorite Zelda out of like 17 that I've played or something. 17, 18, I'm not sure. But it's a Zelda game. It's still so good just by virtue of being in this series.
Yeah.
So we have these complaints, but they're complaints about something, for me anyway, that I hold to a really high standard.
Right.
So I have these complaints, but overall it's still an incredible game. Everything positive that we said is very positive. It's beyond what's accomplished by, 80-90% of game developers out there in 80 or 90% of games,
Yeah.
So it's a smash for me. I would definitely, and especially knowing that the HD version exists.
Honestly, I bet that
is what you should play.
Right. Go find a Wii U, play the HD version. That sounds like the way to go for sure.
Yeah. Like, I want to buy a Wii U and get this game in HD. Mm-hmm. But anyway, this is a smash. It's a smash from both of us, even though we had a lengthy list of complaints. Mm-hmm. But still very good. So it's worth revisiting in 2025 and beyond. Thanks for listening, everyone. And thanks for playing along with us if you did. Thank you, Anthony, for joining me this month again.
Yeah, thank you.
Back. So what'd you like better, EVO or Wind Waker?
I don't know. Dinosaurs are pretty cool, but I think Wind Waker.
Nice. If you do enjoy the show, tell somebody. Tell your friends. Tell the internet. Share it on social media. That'd be great. And if you want to go leave us a rating or review on whichever podcasting platform you're listening on, do that. We love it. It's totally free. It's helpful. And if I see a new review, I'm going to go looking for them. Maybe I'll read yours on the show. We'll do that. You can also go to patreon.smashingbricks.com and become a patron for as little as $1 a month. And at the $5 and $10 tiers, you'll get some fun perks like being able to pick a game, having the chance to have your game picked. Getting bonus episodes is a big one. We do a bonus episode every month for Fireflower supporters. Very cool. Check it out. Patreon.smashingbricks.com. As always, I'd like to thank Tanuki level supporter Ms. Muso. Thanks, Ms. Muso. And we have a Discord also, so check that out. If you know what Discord is, great. If you don't, it's like a big chat room, essentially, with different channels to talk about different things, talk about the upcoming and past games, talk about any video game, talk about anything, talk about board games, food, politics, whatever. Join up on that, totally free. That link can be found at links.smashingbricks.com, along with everything else. As for next episode, Anthony will not be three-peating. I will be joined by Jason Finelli, returning guest Jason Finelli, to play a Japanese RPG from 1989, originally for the Famicom, never released here in the United States. The prequel to one of my favorite RPGs of all time, Earthbound. We're going to be playing Mother, also known as Earthbound Beginnings. So get your hands on a copy of that, play along, send in your thoughts, and join us next time on Smashing Bricks. That wraps it up for today. I'm still Eddie Inzauto. That is Anthony LaBella. Thank you, Anthony.
Thank you.
And until next time, we will be sailing the great sea, and may the nostalgia be with you.